Talk 10. The Slippery Noodle. Before we begin, let's take a moment to arrive. Nothing special is required here. You can sit as you are, with whatever mood, energy, or distraction happens to be present. This talk doesn't ask for effort, improvement, or performance. It starts from where we are. Talk 10 is about learning without training wheels. Not abandoning practice, but noticing when support quietly falls away. Less leaning on structure, on methods, or reassurance, and more trust in what has already been learned. It's a shift from being guided step by step to discovering that balance is possible when no one is holding the bicycle seat. As you listen, you may recognize parts of your own life here. Moments where we rely less on rules, voices, or reminders. Times when things feel exposed, but also more ordinary and human. There's nothing to fix or apply yet. Just notice what sounds familiar. After all, as Buddha emphasized in the Parinibbana Sutta, this practice was always meant to carry on without someone holding it all up. I remember my mother holding the back of the bike seat as I learned to ride. I pedaled, balancing, steady and careful. She kept reassuring me that she was still holding the seat. At some point, I realized she wasn't right there anymore. I looked back to check, and that's when I wobbled, veered off, and tumbled to the ground, sustaining a scraped knee, more shock than pain. Later, I remember being more angry than hurt, not at the fall, but at realizing she had let go. Learning to walk. When we learn to walk, nothing about it is elegant. There is wobbling, there is falling, there is standing up and falling again. Balance comes and goes. Arms flail, the head tips forward, the body experiments openly, without embarrassment, without any sense that something has gone wrong. No one scolds a child for falling while learning to walk. No one keeps a record. No one says, "You should be better by now." After all, as the Buddha described in the Seika Sutta, learning has always been uneven, something grown into gradually, not mastered all at once. Falling is expected. It belongs to the process. What keeps the learning to walk alive is not praise or pressure. It is curiosity. Something in the body wants to try again, not to succeed, but to feel what happens next. Each fall teaches something, not through words, but through sensation. The weight shifts, the balance adjusts. The body learns where it tipped too far and where it held too tightly. All of the learning about walking happens before pride or shame appear, before comparison, and before identifying with it all. Learning unfolds naturally because learning is what living systems do. Do you feel like you can remember learning to walk? Learning to eat properly. Learning to eat is messy. Food misses the mouth. Hands move too quickly or too slowly. Something spills down the front. Something drops to the floor. Timing is off. Coordination lags behind intention. And the body learns in public. No one expects refinement at the beginning. There is allowance for awkwardness. Movements gradually soften. Hands become steadier. The body figures out pace and distance, not through instruction, but through repetition. Eventually, something subtle develops. Waiting develops. Pausing before reaching develops. Knowing when enough is enough develops. Not because of rules, but because the body recognizes satisfaction without needing excess. As the Buddha often noted when speaking about moderation, restraint doesn't arrive through rules, but through noticing what actually works. What looks like good manners from the outside is really familiarity from the inside. Awareness settles into the body. Restraint grows quietly, without pressure, as part of learning how to care for oneself. Eating becomes ordinary again, not a performance, not a test, just a simple activity carried by attention without needing that constant supervision. Does it seem to you that learning to eat didn't require effort? It just happened. Is that right? Learning to talk to people. When we first learn to speak with others, it is awkward. Words come out wrong. Timing is off. Something is said too quickly or too late. Tone doesn't match intention. Faces react in ways we don't expect, and confusion follows. We misjudge moments. We interrupt. We talk when listening would have helped. Or we stay silent when a response was needed. Social understanding doesn't arrive fully formed. It develops through contact, not theory. As the Buddha explained when asked about speech, what matters is not perfection, but sensitivity, knowing when words help and when they don't. Listening is not taught first. It grows gradually, often after speaking too much, often after feeling misunderstood. Attention begins to shift outward, not because we are instructed to listen, but because experience nudges us there. How loud is too loud? How much is enough? When does a conversation need space? These questions are answered bodily through trial and response, not through manuals or social rules. Long before we know what mindfulness is, attention is already working. The body is learning rhythm, timing, and care, one interaction at a time. But learning to speak with others takes time, doesn't it? Learning to cook something simple. Most of us begin cooking with something very simple. Rice, noodles, toast. Rice and noodles on toast. The first attempts are rarely right. Something burns, something turns watery, something is edible but disappointing, and we eat it anyway. The cooking stove gives feedback. The cooking smells, they change. The sounds of bubbling and hissing, they shift. And the texture tells a story. Cooking teaches through consequences, not instructions. The heat is too high, the water too little, the time too long. Again and again, the Buddha pointed to understanding that comes from doing, from seeing causes and results directly, rather than relying on authority. No one needs to stand over us explaining. The pan teaches, the rice teaches. The next attempt adjusts itself. Authority quietly disappears, replaced by responsiveness to what is actually happening. At some point, the body remembers. Hands move without checking recipes. Attention settles into the process. Cooking stops being effortful and starts being ordinary competence, built without ceremony. Learning often arrives as a small recognition. Just a simple, I see, it works like this. And something relaxes. Was it the same for you too? Did you learn to cook just by doing? Learning to write. Learning to write begins awkwardly. The pen feels wrong in the hand. Letters tilt, they wobble, they stretch too tall or fall apart. Lines drift off the page. No one expects beauty. The page fills with effort, not elegance. Early writing is rarely corrected harshly. Adults do not rewrite children's letters for them. They allow time. They allow mess. They understand that form emerges slowly through repeated contact. Improvement comes quietly. Grip adjusts. Pressure softens. Spacing settles. The hand learns without commentary. Skill grows, not because someone demanded it, but because practice continued. No one attaches identity to early handwriting. No one says, this crooked letter reveals who you are. Writing is treated as a process, not a verdict, and that makes learning possible. The Buddha was clear that difficulty is part of learning. It's the extra layer of self-criticism that turns effort into suffering. Eventually, writing becomes ordinary. Words appear without strain. The hand trusts itself. Nothing needs proving, just steady movement across the page. Do you feel that you were just allowed to learn? Learning to ride a bike and drive. Learning to ride or drive begins with support. A hand holding onto the bike seat, an instructor in the passenger seat, someone watching the mirrors, someone reminding us to slow down. Guidance is close, reassuring, and expected. I was once staying at a Dharma center in Kuala Lumpur. In the early evening, I received messages from a student of mine, Nico, that they would like to visit and discuss something. I agreed. I patiently waited, sitting and meditating in the ground floor hall for quite some time. They told me they were on the way, but may take some time as the route was new to them and busy traffic. Eventually, I saw car headlights and they pulled up outside. They let themselves in and walked mindfully up the long, empty, soft-lit hall to where I was sitting. They reached me, put their handbag down, and bowed once, bowed twice, bowed a third time. Then, as if from nowhere, a lady's voice echoed around the hall saying,
"You have reached your destination."
At first, instruction feels necessary. We rely on reminders. We ask questions constantly. What to do next matters. Mistakes are anticipated, and correction arrives quickly. Then one day, something shifts. The hand lifts from the bike seat. The instructor steps out of the car. There is no announcement, no ceremony, just space where guidance used to be. Movement continues anyway. Balance holds. Decisions happen without consultation. The body knows before the mind comments. Instruction hasn't vanished. It has become internal. Nothing has been taken away. Support hasn't failed. It has done its job. Learning continues, now carried from within. As the Buddha told the Kalamas, guidance has a place, but eventually it gives way to confidence, grounded in one's own experience. Do you feel that momentum moving forward on your own effort and balance? Learning through failure. Failure enters early in life. Tests not passed. Skills that don't come easily. Moments where effort doesn't produce success. Everyone meets these points. They arrive quietly, without asking permission. What follows matters more than the failure itself. Some people retreat. Some push harder, some pause, recalibrate, and try again. The nervous system learns here, not through achievement, but through our response. Punishment never taught recovery. Harshness didn't build strength. What allowed learning to continue was being able to return without humiliation, being met with patience instead of a verdict. The Buddha never treated falling short as a verdict, only as part of a longer movement of learning and recovery. When effort isn't punished, it becomes sustainable. Trying again stops feeling dangerous. Mistakes stop threatening our identity. Learning becomes something we can stay with. Failure doesn't stop learning, it refines it. Life continues teaching as long as kindness remains part of the process. Do you feel that that is true for you? That failures didn't stop you from learning? They helped refine learning. That life continued teaching you as long as you remained kind. Learning social restraint. Social restraint begins very simply, waiting our turn, pausing before speaking, not filling every gap. Learning that silence does not mean something has gone wrong. Most of us learned social restraint gradually, interrupting once too often, speaking too quickly, realizing later that something important had been missed because attention arrived too late. There is a moment when silence stops feeling awkward and starts feeling workable. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs defending. Presence becomes enough. The urge to jump in still arises, but it no longer has to be obeyed. A small pause appears. When the Buddha spoke of restraint, it was never about suppression, just about a quiet sensitivity that develops on its own. Choice replaces reflex. The body settles slightly. Social restraint is meditation. Before the mind names the experience, attention is steady. Impulses are known. Action and reaction are restrained without effort. Do you know that feeling of sensing quietly, choosing, settling, aware of impulses, restraining an impulse? Learning without praise. At some point, we do things well and no one comments. The task is completed, life continues. No acknowledgement arrives. Nothing special happens. As the Buddha observed, praise and blame come and go. Steadiness grows when practice no longer depends on either. Something important shifts here. Either effort collapses or it continues quietly. No applause, no correction, just the work still being done. When praise fades, a deeper question appears. Why am I doing this work, this task, this chore, this duty? If no one notices, Does it still matter? Here is where steadiness forms. External approval is no longer required. It may still be pleasant, but it is not necessary. Competence rests inside the activity itself. This kind of learning doesn't announce itself. It settles, it holds, it keeps going without needing recognition. Is that experience familiar to you? Keeping going without anyone praising? Learning to continue without teachers. Over time, teachers appear less often. Parents step back. Instructors fade into memory. Guidance becomes quieter. Not because it failed, but because it worked. What remains is not absence. It is capacity. Skills already formed. Judgement already softened. Attention already present. Nothing new is required. Nothing has been taken away. There is no removal of support. Only the recognition that what was learned has become usable without reference to its source. Life continues teaching in ordinary ways, through conversations, through mistakes, through quiet competence, just continuity. The path does not disappear. It walks with us, unremarkable, reliable, already functioning as intended. Do you recognize that you are already doing that? You are already continuing using that which teachers passed to you. Returning to the ordinary. And nothing here needs to be completed. Nothing needs to be carried forward as a task. These ways of learning have already happened. And they are already happening. The invitation now is simply to notice how much is already working without supervision. And to let that be enough for this moment. So I hope you feel that you can rest here.